And with that, things that the public will hopefully never hear on Dice Nights. Welcome to Dice Nights episode 3, where a bunch of us who play D&D together just get together and talk about our very favorite and nerdiest of hobbies. Let's go around and make some introductions, because we have one member of our group who's been able to join us for tonight who hasn't been in previous episodes yet. So, Peyton, take it away.
Hello.
Talk a little about yourself.
I like Dungeons and Dragons.
I would hope so.
Brilliant. Brilliant
Nice,
input.
perfect.
Absolutely fantastic.
No,
Love it.
I've been playing for about 4... I don't know, I think the number changes every time. I think it's 4. About 4 years. I started with 3.5.
Time travels.
Yeah. I'm all over the place. One day I'm 36, the other I'm like 2.
Yeah.
But I started with 3.5, and I've been doing 5e for the last 2 years now. I really don't do much other than that. So. Hey!
Tell them about your theater escapades.
Oh yeah, I act.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
So excited.
Axe
Well,
the bleeding Mick.
I mean,
Only Irish people will get that.
he acts like our friend, so I mean, he does a pretty good job of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
He acts like he loves his family.
No.
Oh gosh, those inside
Oh,
jokes.
wow,
though.
okay.
Jeez,
No, I don't, Chris,
You wanna
don't
put that on
lie.
the internet?
Jeez. Sorry. I'm just kidding. Totally just
Anyways.
kidding. I'm sure Peyton
Oh,
really does love
God.
his family.
No, I do.
think.
I do.
So,
Oh, yeah.
interesting thing that we discovered sort of starting this podcast. Peyton is the longest running player of D&D out of our group.
Yep.
While also being
Yeah.
the youngest player. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
I'm the oldest player in the group, and I've been playing the least amount of time.
I'm also the only one qualified to
Yeah.
talk about the subject today.
Well,
Oh, yes.
you're the only
Yeah,
one on the
that's
other
true.
side of the fence for
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
So,
Just, yeah, we should preface, we are literally the worst people to compare the things we're going to be talking about. Just, we're going to
Yeah.
talk about it anyway, but we're
This-
literally the worst people
this
for it.
this is going to wind
So-
up being a very one-side-of-the-topic conversation.
Yeah.
We'll do our best, folks. But today's topic is sort of disconnected from our previous episode of Lich Please, because we wanted to hit this topic early. It's,
Mhm.
for DMs out there, it's homebrew versus module versus using a setting guide for your campaign. Well, we should just kind of be transparent about this. Pretty much every game we all play in right now with each other are homebrew games.
Yeah.
Just-
It's
And
all
we
over.
all
Yeah.
DM and we all
Um,
homebrew in the games we DM.
Actually, with the exception of the one I run, because I'm using
Yes.
the Chaldore setting guide put out by Matt Mercer and Green Ronin Publishing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
The game I run is also, like, I mean, it's homebrew, but it's like, it's set in Earth with, like, all
Yeah.
of, like,
You don't
the
have to.
mythology
You don't
and
have to make a
stuff.
map. You
No, I don't have to
to
make
create...
a map for it. I don't have to.
No,
It's kind
you
of
don't
like
have to create a
it's
ton of
kind
lore.
of like a setting that's already there.
It's a
I'm just
homebrewed
taking-
weird
It's like
setting.
a weird mix between homebrew and pre-setting stuff.
It's just a hybrid.
Yeah, it's a hybrid.
of the two.
It's a hybrid.
Yeah.
So, with all the hedging we're doing, you can probably guess none of us have really run modules. I know Peyton.
Or played in
I
one.
played-
Wait, has anyone played in a
I
module?
played in
No.
2 modules back in 3.5. One was the
Okay.
Shackled City, and the other was, I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah. So
I
Peyton-
love that module. Heard it's really, really good.
Shut up, Chris. Sorry. So Peyton, you're the one who's actually played in modules. I kind of want to get your take on this. How different does it feel playing a module as a player compared to a homebrew? Like, what's been the difference between modules for you and, like, our homebrew games where we're coming up with a lot of this on the fly?
Well, when I played a module, it was actually my first game. And so it was more to, like, introduce us to the game. The DM who ran it had been playing for a while, like, I think, like, 10, 20 years. But, like, he was good at D&D, but he ran the module so that we could get a hang of it. And then we later on switched over to a homebrew game. So I think it's really good for... and it didn't even feel like being railroaded much at all. We were given a direction to go in, but didn't feel like we were stuck there. Even though we kind of were. get the idea. But that might have just been I had a good DM. But like, difference in between is when it comes to homebrew, it's a lot easier to like investigate the world, like go into your backstory and stuff. When it comes to modules and such, the characters kind of have to be a lot more like I'm out for treasure, I'm out for adventure. Like, it's not really something that your character has a lot of like motivation apart from just wanting to do it. Sometimes it can be, most of the time it's not. And when it comes to homebrew, like with our games, we heavily incorporate character backstories into it, and we like motivate us with that. Oh God, do we?
Yeah. So just to sort of expand on that a bit, for anyone who's listening who may not know much about D&D or who's looking into DMing but doesn't quite know where to start, there's sort of, I would almost call it 3 tiers of ways you could go about starting to plan your own game. So there's modules, which are the pre-built stories and pre-published stories written by Wizards of the Coast.
Yep.
And there are other companies that write their own modules for 5e and other editions as well.
You could probably find some on DM's Guild.
Yes.
Right?
Maybe.
You can find some on DM's Guild.
There are quite a few third-party modules on DM's Guild as well. You can also find modules from older editions and kind of update them yourselves and bring them forward. I know Matt Colville talks a lot about that and kind of like recycling those modules even into homebrew games, which is something we can touch on later on as well.
And there are like a ton out for 5e right now, already published
by
Wizards. There's a ton, and like a bunch of them deal with a bunch of different creature types and like stories and stuff. Yep. They're really cool.
The most recent one
really
being Dragon Heist by Wizards of the Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and is Dungeon of the Mad Mage out yet?
No, that's out the next month or the month after, as of the recording of this.
Yeah,
So they might already be out.
Yeah, they might be out by the time you hear it.
Yeah,
potentially.
But even though we don't play modules more particularly, I do want to talk a bit about how we still draw from them, because the one thing Wizards of the Coast is particularly good at is building a story and building a module that can very easily be picked up by DMs and run. Like, it'll give you everything you need in the book, everything you need to know as a DM to run that story, you will have. When it comes to creatures, stat blocks, maps, it'll give you all that stuff. The thing is,
it does.
Sometimes, and I've encountered this talking to some other friends who have been long-running DMs who've done modules as well, occasionally they can feel a bit limiting for a DM, because it can be a bit tough to like pull yourself away from what's on the page and just sort of wing it from time to time if you need to. So I've heard people talk about it almost as if there's a chance for it to become a crutch.
I think that really depends on the DM though.
Yeah,
it's really a DM to DM discrepancy there.
Yeah, if you're more interested in like having the module but building in different aspects to it, like backstory and all that stuff, Wizards of the Coast and other folks who put out their own modules tend to be very good at giving you that wiggle room, as long as you're able to look for it, essentially. What's on the page is never the end result, is I guess what I'm getting at.
Yeah. But I think one of the things the modules are very good for, definitely new DMs. I think even like the starter set, Minds of Phandelver, definitely if you are trying to get a group together to DM, invest in that. Even for when like reading through the Minds of Phandelver, I never ran it, but I read through Minds of Phandelver and it definitely informed me on how to like design encounters and specific like layouts for like if the players are going into a mine or something, like, or a cavern or like a tomb, and like showing a bunch of different rooms and what's in that room, and like it's very good for just teaching you kind of how to do that without like telling you. It's kind of like learn by reading and doing. It's like self-learning kind of. But it's very good at that.
Yeah, and if you pick up a module, do yourself the service of actually reading it through.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
you will learn a lot, even though
that.
it feels like reading a textbook sometimes. They will be the most interesting textbooks you will ever read. Because
yeah.
Also, sorry to interrupt. The Minds of Fandelver is not nearly as daunting as the rest of the modules. It's literally like it's not even a hardback.
Yeah.
It's a softback. Like it looks more like a magazine, like sized than like any of the other modules. Like Waterdeep Dragon Heist is like a full like I'd say like 200-page book.
Like
it is a lot.
Yeah,
it is so much, and that's like all the other modules.
Yeah, and at the same time too, a lot of modules for DMs out there are built for certain level sets. They're built for say like levels 1 to 15 or levels 7 to whatever. Like they're designed to be played and kind of slotted in, not necessarily as full campaigns, but occasionally more like arcs in a larger campaign.
I think there are a couple that are. I mean, like, so there are some modules that are connected together. So, Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat are like basic. Like, Horde of the Dragon Queen is the like first part of that like whole campaign, and then Rise of Tiamat is like the sequel to it. You're like supposed to go from one to the next with the same characters immediately.
Yeah.
And I think like Out of the Abyss is 1 to 20. As far as I know, that's like a full.
I think so.
It's like a full campaign.
Yeah.
Module. Some of them are really good at it, and then like Curse of Strahd and stuff as well.
Yeah. I personally have a couple of modules. There's one module, Tales from the Yawning Portal, that's really good for like just
shout out to the Yawning Portal.
Yep.
Shout out to the Yawning Portal for those of you listening to Witch Please. Shout out to the Yawning Portal, but it's good for smaller segments of arcs. Definitely. And even though it is a module, those of you who do homebrew stuff, do not be afraid to steal from modules for your campaigns.
Also,
definitely.
Tales from the Yawning Portal, very, very, very good if you want to do like a 1 or 2 shot. Some of the like, there are a bunch of like mini dungeons. Well, they're not mini dungeons. They're like a bunch of just the most famous dungeons from D&D, the most famous dungeon crawls from D&D, all in one book. From D&D's history, and one of them is Tomb of Horrors, which is notoriously like just awful.
Yeah,
and I ran it for my players, but I heavily changed it. Like even just reading through those, they can give you a lot of inspiration. The books.
And this sorry.
Oh, no, you go ahead. No, I was finished talking.
This just kind of goes to show, like, even though we may rant and rave about Wizards and some other companies that produce these things, they're still pretty hit and miss, and that's kind of the way of things for D&D. Like, you're going to have some story arcs that will really resonate with your players, and if you are equal parts good and lucky, that will be the majority of your campaign. But there's also going to be times where, like, it doesn't quite hit the way you want it to, or things like just sort of miss the mark, or your players miss something that you intended them to pick up on.
Tomb of Horrors.
Yeah, Tomb of Horrors is notorious.
Good luck
for
with that. Good luck running Tomb of Horrors if your players are like that.
I remember one story where I mentioned Tomb of Horrors to a friend, and all he told me was everyone died because they missed a single key.
Yeah, like people.
That was it.
Like
that was
people go through like halfway through the dungeon, and there was like a tiny little like crevice that they didn't check that had something inside. I didn't actually run proper Tomb of Horrors, but like this is essentially like, this is me over exaggerating it, but this is like essentially what happens is like very start of the dungeon, there's a little crevice, it's got a key in it, everyone walks past it, they get 3/4 of the way through the dungeon, there's a door that you literally just cannot open unless you've got the key. Now you have to trek the entire way back through the dungeon to try and find the key. It's at the very start of the dungeon. You have to get through all the traps again. Everything.
Oof.
Yep. Anyways.
All of it.
Yeah.
But like, it's horrible.
Besides that tangent.
But it's iconic.
Modules are very, very good for introducing new players to the game, getting a DM used to DMing, and also for inspiration. There's also sort of the midway point of just setting guides. The Tal'Dorei campaign guide that we use for the game that I run, for example. I believe Green Ronin Publishing has their own Midgard setting out, which is like Norse mythology inspired.
I think so, yeah.
And it's
not as good as mine, low key.
Don't go throwing shade at any of the officially published stuff.
Sorry,
all right.
Sorry.
But there are things out there where, like, in past editions, you could get a simple setting guide for like Waterdeep and Greyhawk and things. And they just give you the setting details. They'll give you like the city of Waterdeep, for example, or they'll give you Faerun, for example, and it'll just give you everything.
And Neverwinter as well.
Yeah, Neverwinter as well. Thanks for that one. And basically, it just gives you the information you need to have that sort of sandbox for your players to play in, and then you build the story yourself out of either elements that are in the book or an idea you've had yourself. You can pair a setting guide with a module for a story and sort of kick-bash them together and be really fun that way too. I've kind of been doing that a bit in our Taldora game, which has been fun.
He's been stealing from Curse of Strahd, the evil mother.
I've been stealing from 3. Their opening storyline
That's not
was
comforting.
stealing from Princess of the Apocalypse, which was great. Princess
of the Apocalypse
is not a really well written module. It's a bit of a letdown, but I stole the ideas for like primordial titans and having to deal with them and all this stuff from Princess of the Apocalypse. So dealing with primordial titans was their first story arc, essentially. Their first act, as I like to put it. And
if you're on D&D Beyond, go and look up the official monsters, and then filter it to look up elementals, and then do it by challenge rating highest to lowest. You'll literally see the stat blocks for the monsters that we fought at the very top. Zaratan, All Hydra, Mimics.
For those of you that know,
insane.
For those of you that do this, or for those of you that have like Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, I had them fight a Zaratan at level 6.
Yeah,
was it 6 or was it 7?
To be fair, we had it fight All Hydra.
Yeah,
at, like right before we finished it. Basically, we didn't.
We tricked them to fight each other.
They were.
We ran.
They were geniuses.
We were rescued.
I loved and hated every minute of it. But they managed to trick 2 elemental titans into fighting each other.
Also, Chris, we didn't fight Imix. We helped Imix. Remember?
Yeah. Anyways, that's a story for another time. We'll go into full detail with that in a different episode. But I've been lifting from Princes of the Apocalypse, from Out of the Abyss, dealing with all the demon lords in the Abyss, and that's been fun. And from Curse of Strahd.
Very much want to run a game. Well, I don't want to run Out of the Abyss. I am a huge fan of the demon lords from it. Like,
you're obsessed with the demon lords.
I honestly am. I love them so much. I think they're like just such cool enemies. Especially Grazd. He's like, just I don't know. I have his official mini and everything. Like, I love him so much.
For those of you that want to know, there's 2 different ways you can get access to the Demon Lord stat blocks, if any of you are curious. You can pick up Out of the Abyss from Wizards of the Coast, or you can pick up Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, which just came out this past year as well, that has all of them in it too.
So if you'd prefer a book full of just new monster stat blocks, just get Mordenkainen's. And if you want the module, just get both. If you want the module, just get both. Get Mordenkainen's anyway. It's amazing. It's fantastic.
Mordenkainen's is terrifying.
Mordenkainen's has been like the majority of the monsters I have used for this campaign.
Oh yeah,
has some awesome monsters in there.
It's terrifying as a player. It is lovely as a DM.
I own it, and I haven't even read through all of it because I know Eric is using a bunch of the monsters in it from for his campaign that we're playing in. So I literally have not gone to look through because I don't want to know any of the stats or anything for any of the monsters. I just want to be surprised. I know what they look like because I've looked at all the pictures of them and kind of read a little bit of the descriptions, but I haven't looked at any of the stats or anything. But
my friend has the physical book, so I'll look through it, and if I see anything that looks like something Eric might throw at us, I skip it. I might be looking for stuff for my game.
I have not looked at any of the new demons or any of the new devils.
Horrible monster. Eric.
I haven't touched those.
I've just looked at the demon lords because
demon lords.
They are some.
I haven't even touched those yet.
There is no word that I can use on this podcast to describe them.
because of the setting we're using, our Tal'Dorei campaign takes place after the end of Critical Role's first campaign. So I brought back one of the villains from that campaign that I've been using. It's been fantastic.
Oh yeah.
And I've been using a modified Strahd stat block for him for
that's
most
not
of this.
good.
Oh joy!
And it's so much fun. They haven't even faced him yet, but it'll be great.
Yeah, we've just heard stories.
We haven't. We've seen what he can do.
Yeah.
Getting off the tangent and back to the
right.
Yeah.
So,
the actual
this is
we're
all to bring
talking
up
about.
how you can essentially like kit bash a setting and different modules. There's ways to do it.
You could like I think modules are like very, very good for like inspiration and taking ideas from. I have not read Out of the Abyss, but I know the general the general concept of it and like what it's about, and I do want to incorporate that like into a game. Yeah. I have like a huge I just keep going on about the Demon Lords. I have a huge obsession about running a game where the Demon Lords, all 8 of them?
Yes, there is 8 of them.
8. All 8 of them are like the main villains, and you have to go and kill every single one of them. Like, I just have like a huge obsession with that. I probably shouldn't say, because my players for my IRL game could be listening to the podcast. Probably going to end up happening for my IRL game though. So,
I mean,
probably going to end up happening for my IRL game. But I don't know, maybe not. If they're listening, it's definitely not going to happen for our IRL game. Just ignore me.
That'll be fun.
But yeah, like I really have an obsession with this. That's why I like kind of want to steal from Out of the Abyss a little bit and incorporate it into my homebrew setting. But getting on to why you should play homebrew settings, because homebrew settings are amazing.
Here we go. This is our thing.
This is the thing. Now, keep in mind, I currently run a game that's a pre-built setting, but I'm in the middle of homebrewing a setting for the next game I'm going to run for these lovely folks. And it is so much fun.
Yeah.
It is a lot of fun.
It's a lot of work, but homebrewing is almost more rewarding, I think.
Oh, I think so.
I think
so. I think when you come up with like a world and a story that's all you, or mostly you, because you know nothing is fully original. Like there's people take inspiration from a bunch of things, but like when you come up with something that's like mostly you, and your players respond positively to it or negatively. You know, sometimes you want your players to respond negatively. When you get the reaction that you want from your players, basically. In your new world, in your own world, it is like the best feeling as a DM.
Yeah, I mean, I've had all of them kind of chomping at the bit, Chris especially, to get into this new campaign setting because I sent out the idea for it like months in advance so I could plan.
It's exciting.
Yep.
And I am super excited just because I get to play with a lot of more like themes in terms of setting and in terms of different atmosphere, and that's a bit harder to do with a pre-built setting or a module because the modules will sort of track the DM onto certain threads in some cases and certain themes. And I think that just comes from it being sort of a more take bits and pieces style storytelling with a module. Whereas in a homebrew setting, especially when you're building a setting, you can build in opportunities for these different story things to come in. Like, the first thing I built for that campaign was the Pantheon and the gods, and I explained how every race came to exist.
Yeah, he went
that was a fun
read. Just the full,
because
he went super deep.
I went super deep at that because I knew I wanted to have notes for how NPCs would react to a character of a certain race or a character of a certain religious tendency, because there's a lot of religious tension and there's a lot of nationalism going on, and I like to play with those themes. So yeah, it was something that I had to go into for my notes, so I would know. But I also feel like players loving a homebrew setting is one of the most satisfying things.
Mm-hmm. Also, homebrew is like really good for people who just like have that creative itch and just like creative writing. Mm-hmm. You know, coming up with your own story, like how you kind of like, obviously the players kind of pretty much like they guide the story, you kind of set it, and they traverse the path and like sometimes make their own, oftentimes make their own.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like you kind of laying out the groundwork for a story and for like specific villains and certain events that you want to happen is like super awesome if you're into like writing, especially like if you love creative writing. Like when I was a kid, I used to like write stories all the time about like fantasy things and everything, and like now I get to like write a story but then have my friends kind of play it out, which is just like way better.
It is
than like writing a
so
story
much
for
fun.
yourself, because I mean like as a DM I always say I write what I would want to play in and then just hope my players want to like play in it as well. Like I mean so far they have wanted to play in it. None of them have complained so far. None of them have said, "Hey, let's not play."
I haven't told you this, Chris, but I don't like playing it.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to bring something to your attention.
Sorry, bring it to you now.
To clarify,
Yes.
Bailey's upset because her character currently is linked up with an elder brain.
Yep.
So
it's not fun.
That's also something you can do in a homebrew setting. You can tweak how your monsters work.
Yep,
Intellect devour. Like in anything.
Yeah.
But tweaking how your monsters work, that is something that I love about homebrew settings. I have a good beholder that runs a magic shop.
He's amazing.
For one, that's like one of the things I like. I love playing with creatures' alignments. And then for the second thing, I know intellect. They went into the Underdark, so they had and they encountered an intellect devourer. I'm literally not a fan of save or die. I hate it. So I decided, okay, they're gonna fight an intellect devourer, but instead of it taking over someone's brain and just killing them immediately, it connects them to the hive mind of an elder brain. So the wizard of all people, who shouldn't fail the intelligence saving throw required, failed their saving throw.
We did some
and
stupid
is now
things.
Connected to the hive mind of not just any elder brain, but the oldest elder brain in existence in the setting. They already know this, so I'm not revealing anything.
We made some mistakes.
They already found this all out anyway. So.
And I still freak out about it every time I play that character.
It is really awesome for me. It is because that elder brain knows everything they're doing. Everything.
Yep.
It's don't
brilliant.
say that.
It is great. It's so much fun for me.
It's great. It sucks and it's terrible.
But yeah, you can do all this cool stuff when you're doing a homebrew setting that like. In a module or whatever, if you have a really cool idea that you want to incorporate into the story that's like really different from what the module is trying to accomplish, it's kind of hard to do that.
Yeah, there are ways you can do it, but it can be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, that's why, like Eric was saying, it's quite limiting as a DM the module.
Yeah, and like I know some friends who have DM'd before, and unfortunately I've never played games with them because of life scenarios. But,
he doesn't like them.
More like because they just don't have the time to play D&D now that they're in grad school.
Oh, they don't like you. That's it, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
No. So I've talked to friends before, and they've said like, "Oh, modules are great, and I love kind of like building different stories around a module," and it's very clear that they can do that because they've either run the module more than once and know it very well, or they've run multiple modules and sort of know the trend of how they work. So it becomes a lot easier the more you do, essentially. But if you're doing a homebrew setting, boy, do we have tips for you.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So many things. First off...
Oh, you go first.
I was just going to say, just research.
Bite
the bullet.
Gosh, definitely, yeah.
So much.
Bite the bullet, research the hell out of everything. Just do it.
Yeah.
If you're doing a homebrew setting, plan it months in advance before.
Yeah.
Before like deciding.
Don't
to
be
run
like me.
Or me.
Because I literally send them like, "Oh, I had this idea. I don't know if I'll ever run it or not."
Let's do it.
A week later, I am running session 1.
To be fair, I did the same for mine, but like I've said, my homebrew like world history setting, I can literally just take from mythology and stuff. Like,
yeah.
There's already a bunch of groundwork laid for me that I just wanted to incorporate into a game that I thought was cool.
You're like, Bailey, you're like, I have an idea.
That's from the back of the player's handbook. Go ahead, Peyton.
Sorry, you're basically like, hey, I have an idea. We're just all, okay, now.
Yeah.
I didn't expect you guys to say yes immediately.
You were like, hey guys, I have this idea for a campaign, don't know if I'll ever run it or not. I was like, yeah, here are my stats and my background, and...
Yes,
pretty much. And, like, I did the same, but that's
then I started having panic attacks because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to plan anything. I stayed up for 3 straight days watching Matt Colville videos, so I didn't sleep. The 2 nights before our first session because I didn't know what I was doing. I was planning. I was watching Matt Colville. I was watching GM tips. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Speaking of, we're gonna link to these pages in the description. Matt Colville is fantastic for tips. GM tips is fantastic. XP to level 3 is really great as well. So just shout out.
He's really good for players.
Yeah,
really
XP to level 3 is great for players. But just if you guys want more content like this. And more sort of, like, we touch on a lot of things, but we don't go fully in-depth yet, because we haven't just gotten to those episodes yet. But, like, Matt Colville has, like, 60-some-odd or more episodes out for running the game. And there's such great content. And, like, GM Tips is some of the top GMs from streams and just the internet in general getting together and telling you their tips and tricks behind the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they... have significantly more experience than us running games.
Yeah,
definitely.
Although
I would definitely go and watch some of their videos if you're going to run a homebrew game.
Although most of you that are here probably have already watched it, so hey.
Oh, yeah. Probably. I would assume.
But for the rest of you,
if you're listening to us, you know who Matt Colville and Matt Mercer and all those guys are.
And if you don't know who they are, you know now. Go watch them. You'll love it. Especially if you like our stuff, because like we take their advice and we are passing on that advice and what has worked for us, and like we're gonna
plagiarism. Not really.
Not really. We're giving credit where credit's due. Like a lot of what we do that works for homebrewing stuff comes from these other sources that we've sort of tweaked to work for us.
We've tweaked it to work for us in different ways.
Yeah.
Because, like, as a group, we also know each other well enough now where, like, we know the stuff about a setting that's going to hook each other. We know, like, interesting gods are going to hook people, and we know an interesting city or weird, like, political dynamic is going to get everybody interested.
Yeah. Like organizations and stuff that can, like, mess around in the background and stuff.
And we know that with character creation, I will uncover every secret.
Yeah, we have learned that Peyton, if there's ever a secret the DM wants to save for later in a game, Peyton will make a character that has to deal directly with that secret, so you just have to tell him everything from the start.
Unintentionally.
That didn't happen to me, though.
Unintentionally.
I was happy.
It's unintentional.
Because that did not happen to me.
It's still like awful when I'm like planning for the Underdark and I'm like, yeah, there's literally like in my world no one knows what the Underdark is. And Peyton comes along and he says, hey Chris, I'm making a Deep Stalker. Just my ranger's a Deep Stalker. He grew up in the Underdark, and I was like, fuck my ideas, and just like threw the paper away.
Hey Chris, what happened to family friendly?
Whatever, the kids can close their ears, it's fine.
You can tell Chris is frustrated when he throws family friendly out the window. Anyways.
Chris is not family friendly in the slightest. I have filters upon filters on right now.
Anyways, so yeah, research the hell out of everything to bring this back from a tangent. Like, if you're building an entire world, like, I went a step further. I'm not just building, like, a single kingdom or a single continent. I'm building a planet. And that's because I want to run multiple campaigns in this world setting eventually. Like, I have a lot of story ideas for this. So, research. Find, like, cultures and stories about cities and different things that you find interesting from the real world.
Weird history. Weird history. That's fun to mess with.
Find the history you find interesting and weird stuff, and find ways to incorporate it. Because if you know about it, it's going to be so much easier to DM in the long run. Because you're just going to think, oh, this works like this, and you're going to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's way better to find stuff you can compare to like actual history and actual cultures than to try and come up with stuff from scratch, because like Chris said, nothing is ever truly original, but if you combine unoriginal things in original ways, it gets really, really cool.
Exactly. And obviously, you can have like, there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of different ideas out there for campaigns and everything like that. So, your idea might be original to you. So,
and to the people you're playing with.
And to the people you're playing with.
Yeah.
So, and do not be afraid to steal from anything, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Don't be afraid to steal from anything.
If you like something, use it. Like,
I say
it'll be fun.
As long as you're running the game and as long as you're not trying to, like, publish stuff, just do it.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many different ways to recombine story ideas and different things. Like, it'll be fine. Now,
so, yeah, even, straight up, in my Homebrew IRL game, there is a group of, essentially wraiths that, ride around and murder a bunch of, anyone who worships Bahamut. They just go around and just slaughter them. Literally, they're just ring wraiths.
Yeah, I was about to say, how many are there?
They're literally just ring wraiths. I'm gonna have it, if my players ever encounter them, they have the screech, they ride nightmares instead of, just normal horses, and they're just, hooded black cloaks.
Oh,
there's 5 of them instead of 9.
There's actually a thing in Mordenkainen's that rides a nightmare, too.
Yep. I have looked it up, because I might be using it as stats. But, essentially they're gonna work, they might end up working as, the anti-party, because each one of them has, a different, one of them is basically a fighter, one of them's a warlock, one of them's a wizard, so one of them's basically one of them will basically be an Oathbreaker paladin, they'll have the I'll just homebrew my own kind of Oathbreaker paladin stuff, but I just literally just blatantly stole ring wraiths from the game because they just sound cool. They're just awesome. They're cool creatures that you can homebrew yourself a little bit. You can take the concept of them and then change them to fit your setting and give them a little bit of backstory and stuff as to why they exist. And you can do a ton of things with homebrew settings.
When it comes to actually building, as I just said, I'm building a planet. So it's kind of paradoxical in that when you start building a homebrew setting, you're going to start with something usually pretty broad. You're going to start with a continent, or you're going to start with a kingdom. You're going to start with something very, very big. And then when it comes to actually having to get to session 1, you're going to start with something really, really minute and a single town or a single area. So, you almost have to do this, short-term immediate area planning, and then the super long-term, I gotta know the main pantheon and all this stuff, so that long-term sort of sets up the short-term.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because without the overall, government structure, the overall layout of the country or continent, you're not really going to know, when your characters hand you their backstories, you're not really going to know the best place to put them to start, unless you have the big stuff planned.
And also when your players start asking questions, you're not going to know how to answer. When your players are hey, do I know who the king of this, of this country is? And you're just make an intelligence check to, try and, see if they, because if they don't roll high enough, they're not gonna know. So kind of do that, and then they roll a natural 20, and you're just oh crap. Looking through your notes, you don't have it written down, and you're just oh, it's King No-Nose, the goblin dude. Yeah. And he's but isn't that a human? Isn't don't humans live there? Yeah, but I don't know. It's they have a goblin king, and you're you need to have all this stuff pre-planned. Even just names. You don't need to give them details.
Yeah, it's one of those things where as a DM, your skills for improvising are going to skyrocket.
Oh yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Just based on needing character names alone.
Yes.
Yep.
So, like, find lists of names, find a generator, print off a couple of sheets, like, Xanathar's...
Have them ready.
Xanathar's Guide to Everything.
Yeah.
Yep. Has a bunch
or
of
if you
charts.
don't have Xanathar's, literally just go find lists of names.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources
That's
out
what I
there
do.
for NPCs and for characters.
Fantasy
and
name
stuff like
generator.
Yes, fantasy name
Fantasy
generator is a
name
lifesaver.
And like,
just have it open on your phone.
And there's
we chuckle, but these are things that will help you.
Oh yeah.
They're a blessing.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I was like even for tavern names or whatever. I was looking up. I was like planning my homebrew IRL game the other day, and I was like planning the first city they're gonna be in because we haven't started playing yet. And I was like looking up like, crap, I need like a bunch of taverns in this place because like there's a bunch of different districts. So like, what if they're like, hey, I want to go to this tavern in like this more expensive district because I want to spend more gold or talk to the richer people, and I had to come up with a like tavern name for that, and then like tavern name for like the poorer areas of the city. I'm just like, God, everything, and I'd like used fantasy name generator for a bunch of them.
This brings up a weird point. This is a very like minute thing that I only just realized. A lot of taverns have names that are either 3 or 4 syllables. Just throwing it out there. Because 3 to 4 syllable names roll off the tongue nice, the alliterations sound good, and they're really easily remembered and rattled off the top of your head.
I may or may not be going to look at my oh shit,
I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think of the tavern names I've used.
Manic Tankard. Flashy Stars.
Stars. Yeah.
For me, the Waystone.
Yeah.
Yep.
The only exception I can think of right now is Voluptuous Plump. That's fine.
God damn.
But it's
best
still
tavern name.
but
best tavern name.
Still the
You're
best
welcome
tavern.
for that.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
that was totally Chris's thing. But
What?
like most of the tavern names I've come up with have been 3 or 4 syllable names.
I also realized I just quickly looked at my notes on OneNote, and I like most of them are like 3, 4, or 5 syllables.
Yeah, because 3, 4, or 5
Let's see.
syllable names are easily remembered and they roll off the tongue, especially when there's alliteration or when there's similar sounding syllables involved.
Nope. All mine are 3 to 4. Yep.
You're welcome. But this is a thing too. Like you can use that's almost a mnemonic device to help you remember things. Like if you need to come up with rhymes, or you need to name things off of animals, or like just do whatever you can when you're writing your notes to make them easy to remember, because the more time you spend just rattling off information to your players, and the less time you spend shuffling papers or looking at different screens, depending on how you play, the more immersed everybody is going to be, including you.
Exactly. Yep.
And the more badass you will feel afterwards, trust me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. If your players ask you something and you just go, "Well, Jimmy," and then you give them the answer immediately without flinching, you're gonna feel like, you know, they're gonna be like, "Whoa!" This like, especially if they ask you like a really obscure question, and you just go, "Hey, there's the answer to that." You're gonna like, they're gonna think you're like, "Oh my god, this guy has literally everything planned." Guy or girl has everything planned. Like, they're gonna think you're like God.
Which you are.
Also,
with your planning.
If you're DMing and one of your players takes a feat that lets them remember everything in the last 30 days,
Yeah.
have your notes constantly updated.
Ooh,
and
keen mind.
like what's
Literally
happened.
the best feat in the game.
Because I forgot to take notes one session and they asked questions and I'm just like, I don't remember what happened. Like
you were basically forced to become the note.
Also, if you're a lazy player that just doesn't want to take notes,
take
keep in mind.
No, that's awful. It's awful on the DM.
That's actually why I take notes. I take notes all the time. But like, you know, sometimes you just forget to write something down, but you know you should know it.
Yeah.
And you just, you know.
Yeah.
You should always take notes. But if you are a lazy player,
don't give them items.
Just take friggin' key
that
mind.
let us remember
with that, because that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely homebrewed an item that lets them remember things, and I was like, well, shit.
Yep. Flash recall. It's great.
But like these are the reasons that we're like, you know, we enjoy running homebrew games.
Because we can sorry.
We can
do
mess
whatever
with
you want.
things to our heart's
Yeah.
content.
Yeah.
It's literally like, well, F you, I'm the DM, I do what I want. Like,
also,
just change whatever you want.
The other side benefit to running Homebrew, if you have very experienced players, you can make it so that they won't notice when you're running a module in the middle of their Homebrew game.
Yeah. If you change stuff.
Also, if the players have literally never played a module ever, they're not going to...
Yeah,
that helps.
Yep.
Yeah, that too. You can totally slip in modules wherever you want.
Yeah.
With more experienced players, you just change the names, change the order of events around. Like, you can very easily work these things
Why do I feel like that's what you're doing?
It
now?
is. It definitely is.
He's literally he's admitting it to our faces.
I know.
That's what I've been doing this entire time.
I feel lied to.
God.
Your entire first act was Princes of the Apocalypse, but without all of the middle work of the module.
It's literally Princes of the Apocalypse, just in a Tal'Dorei setting, so we didn't notice.
Yeah, like all I did was like cut the flag from Princes of the Apocalypse and make you have to go through that, because
he just threw us in the deep end.
Yeah, in Princes of the Apocalypse, there's like cults that go around trying to summon these elemental titans. I did away with that, and I said, no, these elemental titans are being brought to the material plane as a distraction from what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not even like the boss.
Dang.
They're the distraction.
Yeah, they were the distraction. It was great. And then once they finally found out it was demon lords doing all this stuff, oof.
It's too late.
Yeah. Yep, we're
it's
effed.
Way too late.
We're screwed.
It's so great.
Yeah.
I will admit though, like, the Tal'Dorei game is like the game I'm running where everything that could go wrong with that world has.
Yeah.
Basically, he's just
it's
whatever Matt Mercer wanted for that world, it's not happening.
It's gone.
It's gone.
Matthew Mercer, if you listen to this episode at any point, I apologize, but I have had too much fun starting the apocalypse in Tal'Dorei.
I hope he revokes your license to use the Tal'Dorei campaign. I just hope he gets in contact with Green Ronin and they just are like, you know what? Nah, they just pluck it away from you.
They are welcome to try.
That's how it works.
Oh my god!
But I mean,
okay.
we're getting
seriously.
We're pretty we've covered pretty much everything, and we're getting to a stage where
stay organized. Some basic tips that I have some basic tips written down that I'm just gonna run the gamut for.
Go for it.
Stay organized. Keep your notes together. Like, we use OneNote. It's easy to use. It's very intuitive. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Last minute planning can work if you already have ideas, but if you have nothing, do not wait until the night before.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, please, no, don't.
Just don't do it.
I definitely don't do that.
Don't, if you're playing IRL and you're worried about costs or money or anything like that, don't worry about buying minis. Use gummy bears.
Yeah.
Use food.
Yes.
You say as I literally spent $50 on minis today.
Well, I mean,
that was your choice.
When you have the disposable income to do this, you do it. But D&D is supposed to be fun. But it's not supposed to be stressful. It's not supposed to be a drain on resources. There are ways out there to play the game with as minimal as cost as possible to you as a DM and to your players. Yeah. Also, don't forget that if you and your players want to play the game and nobody has the money individually, maybe just pitch in together.
We did that for my IRL game for paints for our minis. We all chipped in for paint sets. Yep, that is a good one. That is a good one. If you guys all want a set of minis or whatever, just chip in. Just everyone pay equal amounts to get whatever.
Yeah, if you trust each other enough to do that, and you guys know this game is going to run for a while, what's the harm? It's the same as if you were joining a sports team and you have to pay fees, or a sports club and you have to pay fees for all your gear. Why wouldn't you? That's part of the hobby, but you don't have to. There are ways to play the game for free.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if your DM brings forward to you that hey, there's a miniature, let's just say, for example, that the main villain of your campaign is Orcus, right? And there's the really expensive limited edition Orcus mini that you can get, and your DM's hey, I found one online. It's it's like $80, and there's 4 of you, or yeah. So he says if you can all chip in $20, €20, £20, whatever currency, to pay for this mini, boom, you have a mini for your main villain of your campaign. That's gonna feel awesome when you're actually fighting it.
Yeah,
it's gonna just feel so much cooler.
And that all goes back to like in our previous episodes, we talked about building trust. We talked about trusting each other as players, trusting the DM. If you can build that trust up and you feel comfortable saying, hey, I want to pick this up for the group, or hey, like, I want to nab this if I can, just do it. Like, there's no reason why you should hold back, like, if you say, oh, I want to buy this book, but I don't want to share it with the rest of the group, that's not really in the spirit of the game, right? Like, if you pick up, like, Mordenkainen's or anything like that as a player, consider sharing it. Because everyone else will appreciate it.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like, when I was playing with my IRL game, I was the only person with a PHB. I let everyone use it. My DM was very nice. I was playing a cleric. I was the only spellcaster of the group. He bought me the spell deck for clerics.
Yeah.
Which was like super nice of him. I'm very grateful, Connor, if you're listening. Love you, buddy. And like, you know, one of the guys recently bought Xanathar's, and I'm assuming he's going to share it with anyone who's using the Xanathar subclasses or spells or whatever at the table.
We did a thing where, like, I pitched in and managed to get some help buying a D&D Beyond subscription, and I picked up a bunch of books on there because I wanted all of them to have access to it. And it is fantastic. For people that play D&D as much as we do, like, we're playing twice a week.
D&D Beyond's so nice.
Just invest in D&D Beyond. It will save you time. It will save you money in the long run.
Yep.
And it is so well put together.
Yeah. Yep.
Honestly, I don't use the monster manual for looking up creatures anymore. I just don't.
Yeah.
D&D Beyond, it's just too easy.
Yeah, and on top of that,
Wizards, if you want to sponsor us.
Chris, don't start plugging yet.
Chris.
But like, that brings up a good point. Like, we talked about
a guy can dream.
Like, this podcast for us started just out of love of the game.
Yep.
We aren't making money off this. We don't have sponsorships, anything like that. We're here talking about the game because we love it.
We want to.
And we just want to talk about it. We just want to share our opinions and our ideas and
our stories. And like, that's the thing. Share your stories in the comments too, because we'd love to hear it.
We want to hear all of them.
So yeah, there's tons of resources out there for alternative minis. You can get like paper minis online and all that.
Paper minis are great.
Music, lighting, all that stuff can work for atmosphere, and just kind of don't be afraid. Don't show your panic as a DM. No matter what happens, do your best to keep a level head and keep sort of a straight face. Learn how to make an evil grin work, because there are moments where an evil grin will do more than words ever could.
You perfected that.
Oh, definitely.
Oh yeah.
And just have as much fun as your players, because ultimately, ultimately, you deserve to have fun as the DM too.
Because you're a DM, but you're also playing the game. You're also a player. You're just in a different position than the players.
Yeah.
Now we're hitting a pretty good mark here to wrap up the episode. Is there any closing comments anybody wants to make before we do?
Nope, I just want to point back out that, you know, remember, if you're running a module, like, you can incorporate different things into it. You can incorporate modules into your homebrew setting. You know, modules are good if you don't have much time to plan a game for yourself, or if you're new to the game. But homebrew settings can, you know, if you have the time to plan them, are a lot more rewarding.
Yep.
A lot more creatively free.
Peyton, glad to have you. We're going to have you back for more regular episodes going forward, too.
I will be returning.
I'll be back.
I will be back.
It'll be Return of the Peyton from this day forward.
Every episode, that's the title.
Dice Nights,
Return to the Peyton.
4, Peyton.
Episode 4, A New Peyton. Episode 5.
A new Peyton.
Peyton Strikes Back.
Peyton Strikes Back. Episode 6, Return of the Peyton.
For those of you that have listened to this ramble on homebrew versus modules, thank you. We appreciate it so much. Those of you that listen, we hope to have you back next time as well. Keep an eye for our next episode of Lich Please going forward too. We've been having a lot of fun with those and just laughing more than any of us have in a pretty long time outside of
we've had it's a lot of fun to record those. It's so much fun.
It really is.
We hope you're getting some laughs out of those too, and we hope to have you back next time. Thank you for joining us, and may all your games be good.